What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Last week on my monthly and weekly outlook, I went over my trade idea for Tesla. Now, I did go over some other stuff like XLE, and we'll talk about that in another video. But this is going to be my recap of what happened. So, this week, I took the trade, and it went over 1,000%. And, you know what I'm saying? That's some money right there. I want to break it all down for you, from what I saw setting up, and how I managed my patience in the position, and of course the results. Whether you're trading Tesla or just looking to sharpen your strategy, there are some lessons here you won't want to miss. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to get into this trade, and I'm going to show you by using 3 steps how I was able to net over 1,000% on this Tesla trade. My first step is market structure. While observing the higher highs and the higher lows, or the lower lows and the lower highs, I was able to establish the trend that Tesla was in, bars. So Tesla here on the daily, you can clearly see that it's been in an uptrend. Now, I know it has not taken out this recent high here, and we did put in a low that was actually still lower, higher than this low here. You were able to see that Tesla is still on its way, just kind of chugging its way up. It's a bit slowly, but it's, you know, a very identifiable pattern. In case you can't see it, let me go over it. So we started with our low here, and then we made our lower high. We had our high, so the reason why it's a lower high is because it didn't take out this previous high. Then we made a higher low. Now, normally, if you're in a downtrend, you would see something like this, where we started putting our high and we see our change of structure. We put in a low, then we put in a lower high, and then we would see a lower low. And then possibly something like this, where it comes in and keeps going down. But we didn't see that. What we saw, in fact, was Tesla putting in a higher low, still putting in a lower high, but they kept putting in these higher lows over and over, and no low was taking out the previous low. So that gives me the idea and the confluence that price is doing one of two things. Well, really it's just doing one thing, and it's consolidating. So it's compressing for a move, most likely to the upside. Now, in my previous video, I showed exactly what that looked like. I'm not going to go into the details of it right now, and you can see in my monthly and weekly watch list how I was able to break down why I thought Tesla was going to make a move to the upside. Anyway, so we're here making these higher lows, and then eventually we do make our higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and then a higher high. So that's where I started, just looking at the higher time frame of the daily. Okay, great. Now then I looked at the individual candles themselves. So starting with Wednesday, actually starting with Tuesday, the first day this week when candles open up, we did gap down. Now, I had actually played Tesla last week to the downside because I had a feeling that once we made this high, we were going to sell off a bit, maybe a couple $100. It was nice. I knew, I had an idea where price was going to react because of the step 2 part of my process, which is using the Fibonacci tool. Now, the Fibonacci tool, shout out to Abisai, 8x Trades, y'all the real ones. Using my Fibonacci tool, I was able to establish the area, what's called the OTE, or an area where price reacts normally when it's within these ranges. So we had put in our low, and then we put in our higher high. From here, if price wanted to continue going upward, most likely the area that it would react would be within this area here, as you can see. So on the daily, I put in my fib, and I watched to see how price reacted at this point. Yes, we did break down a little bit below it, but we didn't stay there. Notice what happened. This is on Tuesday. Next day, we gapped up. Okay, so buyers are here, they're waiting, and so that was again my like a clue to let me know that we are about to possibly reverse and go back to the upside. So we bounced off of the Fibonacci, the 0.618, as you can see here, and we did have a bit of a sell-off, but it didn't stay there. we bought it back up again, and then it kind of ended the day with like a doji kind of pattern. All right. Now we're going to take a deeper look into the hourly. In our hourly setup, we can see a few things that are happening. So let's start over here. We had this huge displacement candle to the upside, which created a very, a fair value gap. Price came in all the way up, came down, making this lower, this low. We changed structure here, and then we made lower high, and then we dug back into this fair value gap. Now, the way I was able to, again, determine where I can enter, my entry would be, was based, again, on the daily. Like I showed you before, we had our 0.618. And on the hourly, you can see the consolidation happening. We didn't break anywhere below. We put in our lower low, and then price started to just range sideways. Now, come Wednesday, we gapped up. So we had our energetic move to the upside. We gapped up. We had the breakout. And then they retest that breakout by coming down, closing the gap, and then they bought it back up again. Now we had put in another lower high, and now I'm waiting to see what if this trend would change. We had our displacement candle to the upside, and now I'm looking to see if we put in a higher low. And yes, we put in a higher low here. Not only did we put in a higher low, but I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see, we also have our actionable signal here, which is our 3-1. Let me hide this so you can see. Into our fair value gap, we put in an actionable signal, a 3-1, which again was giving me a bit of hope, not hope, but confluence that we might be continuing upward. So we put in a higher low, and then we started to trend back to the upside. Notice what's taking place on the hourly. We ended the day fairly strong. Now, obviously, this wasn't actually all in one day. So we had this happen on Wednesday. This was Wednesday's close. So let's look at it again. So we have Wednesday's open, came up, came down, and it closed here. Again, not the most bullish looking sequence, but it's what happened the next day when we put in that 3-1, and then we started to make our way back up. All right. So in actuality, we gapped up on Thursday, sold off, came right back into it, traded sideways, and then it's the way we closed. This is just beautiful. Price action. Came down, swept that fair value gap, pushed all the way back up. Now let's take a look again on the daily so you can see what this candle is telling us. Alright, so like I said, this was our consolidation on the hourly. Then we had our breakout. When price came, it gapped up, came all the way down, pushed right back up. Then we had the fair value gap paired with the actionable signal. Again, one thing I do want to mention is we gapped up again on Thursday. So we had 2 days of gapping up and 2 days of price coming back down into this fair value gap and kind of retesting it. And every time it did, they bought it back up. Buyers were present. So it wasn't until Thursday's close where we put in this beautiful hammer candle here. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm getting in. Because I was like, this setup is too amazing. So we put in this hammer, and then opened on Friday, boom, we gapped up heavily. Now it wasn't done yet, and the reason why I feel like it wasn't done was because of the fact that we were so close to achieving outside week. And so I didn't immediately sell the trade, but what I did was I waited to see, again, the first 30 minutes to see how Tesla was going to react. I know I was taking a bit of a gamble, but again, I had strong conviction to think that we're right here. Why not go outside week? We have gapped all the way up, and so lo and behold, that's exactly what we did. When we look at it again on the hourly, in the first hour, so price had gapped up, and then we came all the way up, peaked right above the previous week's high, making that outside bar, because we took out the the down and the high and the low of the previous weekly candle, and I'll show you that on another chart. And then again, we started to sell back off again. By that time, I was already out. I had set my target, which was outside week, took my profit, and solidified over 1,000%. All right, now I'm going to show you again what the weekly looks like. And so again, we swept the low here and then swept the high. So that's how I was able to net over $1,000 in Tesla. I really hope you guys like the explanation. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment. subscribe for more of my recap and monthly or weekly trade ideas. All right, I am CR4G Trades, and this is Kingdom Society. See y'all later.